Good afternoon and welcome to Not Minding My Own Business. Again, my name is Russell Farbiars, estate planning attorney in Berks County and your host. And I am joined here today by Sean Wyandt of Rothenberger Insurance Services. Welcome, Sean.
Great to be here, Russell.
Well, wonderful. I was saying to Sean before we started recording that I haven't seen him since the before times or really spoken with him, but I've known Sean for a number of years. And one of the things that I always found interesting about Sean, other than his always positive attitude about life, is that not only is he an insurance guru, but he is also a DJ part-time, which I understand is a lot of weekend work. But Sean, why don't you introduce yourselves to our guests?
Hello, I am Sean Wyandt. I am a insurance agent with Rothenberger Insurance Services, which has offices in West Reading on Penn Avenue, as well as Madison Avenue in Muhlenberg across from the Lowe's. And I, as Russell pointed out, I'm also a DJ for Jam On Sound Productions out of Mount Penn.
Very, very, very nice. I didn't realize that you guys had an office in Muhlenberg. Is that something new?
It's been a few years. We only rebranded it to Rothenberger this year. It was an acquisition of Advocate Insurance, okay, and we kept that name for a while. But when we brought Erie on as a carrier, we decided it was time to redo the signage and get everything rolled over to Rothenberger.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, insurance. So, what got you started in your line of work?
Well, I got a finance degree in college, but unfortunately, around the time I was coming out seeking work and trying to generate business in that field was 2008. And as we all know, there wasn't a whole lot of people doing a lot with their money in 2008. So as part of starting that journey into financial planning, I picked up a life and health license. So the first number of years I was in the insurance industry, I was doing mostly life insurance.
Okay. And so what are some things that people should think about when they're looking at life insurance?
As far as life insurance goes, it's usually better to get it the younger you can, because they're going to base it off your health at the time that you're applying for the coverage. Another word of advice to smokers is there are certain companies that will look back as a person as a non-smoker after a certain amount of years of quitting. So you definitely want to quit for at least a year, but the longer you can quit before getting it, the better off and more options you're going to have.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, the insurance company is trying to minimize their risk. Now, are there different types of life insurance policies?
Yes, there are a few different types. And they work differently depending on what sometimes your end goal is, because a lot of people, the commercials you see on TV are normally for term policies. So some people might get those not just necessarily for protection for their family. Sometimes it could be the fact that they are buying into a business and people are planning that a certain thing is going to happen, and if someone were to pass during that process, to save some of what they might have lost by that person passing away, they'll put a term policy in place for a period.
Okay. So I just want to talk a little bit about something you mentioned there. Is if someone's buying into a business. So do you work with clients who are small business owners or who are potentially going into business for themselves?
Yes, people that I work with the most are small business owners and real estate investors.
Okay.
And then obviously any insurance agent is going to write your typical home and auto too.
Okay. So how do those small business owners, real estate investors, how do they utilize life insurance to benefit themselves?
So an example I can share with you would be there was 3 individuals that were looking to open a new restaurant. There was kind of the money aspect, there was the one that was bringing concept, and then there was the one that was going to be running the day-to-day. The one that was bringing the concept to secure the loan that they needed, they had requested that a life insurance policy be put in place because if something were to happen to him, the whole rest of the organization of that business would have fallen apart. So until they could secure some kind of financial history, they wanted that life insurance in place.
Now, in some of the work that I do, I will talk to small business owners about key man insurance or having life insurance in the case of a shareholders agreement or a buy-sell agreement. Is that something that you typically recommend? And so how does that get structured?
Just like most insurances, there's a time and a place for it. Generally, especially when you're starting a business, a lot of people are looking to minimize expenses until they get some kind of a cash flow. So usually that's only going to happen if someone's requiring it to happen. Most people don't go out and just do that. It's usually part of a larger plan.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And in the case of multiple shareholders, sometimes that can be beneficial. Now, are you still also doing health insurance?
Health insurance, unfortunately, we pretty much stopped doing once the Obamacare went through. For a period there, the companies that were writing health insurance were only paying agents that were placing large groups. The individual policies and the small policies, they would allow you to write them, but they were not paying any type of commission. So health insurance tends to be kind of tedious because of the information you need to gather, just like life insurance. So if you're not fully focused in that, a lot of guys will just let it go by the wayside.
Okay. And so then you said that your target audience really is small business owners and real estate investors. How did you focus in on that group?
When I started with Rothenberger, Ron, the agency principal, had been going to a real estate investor meeting pretty regularly for a couple years at that point. The thing with real estate investors is they'll buy anything they can make money off of. And not every insurance agency has appointments with carriers that can write or are competitive in different types of insurance. So for instance, usually kind of the progression with real estate investors that are getting in and they're young, the first thing they'll do to generate capital is to flip properties. So they'll rehab it and then sell it. The type of insurance required for that type of operation is either a vacant policy, which a property for most companies is considered vacant if it's not occupied for more than 30 days. So that coverage doesn't provide the same coverage you would have on a homeowner's policy. It's usually less things are covered, and it covers a higher expense because insurance companies look at a property that's being rehabbed or is vacant as being a higher risk because you're changing things. You're not always in the home. It's not like the contractors are sleeping there overnight. So vandalism and theft can go up. So that vacant coverage is one that most of your companies that you think of, the big names like an Erie, a Donegal, a State Farm, they're not writing vacant policies. So there's specialized companies that kind of focus on that stuff, as well as if you move over to new construction or you're doing structural work, there's a policy called a builder's risk, which some banks will want you to have as well if they want you to insure the materials, because it's not part of the structure yet. There's a separate segment there that covers the materials that may be on site.
And what would you say is the most interesting thing you've learned about working with this group? Because I work with real estate investors a lot too, so they can be a little quirky. But you know, do you have anything interesting that you can share?
I mean, each of them have their own way of doing things. So sometimes it can take a little bit of time to get to know them and how they operate. One of the big things for me right out front is to know what kind of a investor are they? Are they swinging the hammer themselves, or are they paying somebody to do it? Because if they're swinging the hammer themselves, they can get away with a little less coverage because they know they're not going to file a claim for something small because they're doing the work. They're just going to fix it themselves. There's other guys that are brought in that don't really have the background. It's just a way to diversify assets. So everything they're doing, they're paying somebody else to do. So you want to make sure that they're covered in a manner that they can just send somebody out and it's going to get fixed and they don't have to worry about it. Everything's just going to be covered by the insurance company.
Nice. What do you think more people should be aware of about what you do?
So locally, I would say one of the things that people are having a little trouble grasping is, just like everything else with inflation, the costs are going up. And unfortunately for us in this region, Pennsylvania, I learned through continuing education classes, was undervalued for many, many years. We're talking probably 30 years prior to 2010. We were probably 25% undervalued for most of our property coverages. And then we started to get some of the crazy weather we've had over the last 10, 15 years, which if you go back, and most people in Berks County are never going to forget the 2014 hailstorm.
That's what I was thinking about when you said crazy weather. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
There were billions and billions of dollars paid out just for that one storm, something that took literally less than 15 minutes, blew through, just tore a certain part of this county apart. And there's been a couple other hail incidents since, and everybody learned by the 2014 incident that insurance companies, for the most part, were going to cover everything. So anytime somebody uses the word hail and it's in their neighborhood, they think they're getting something new. One of the adverse side effects to that is insurance companies have become much more transparent when it comes to what they want as far as having roofs replaced from a certain time frame. If it's a flat roof, almost every company I work with wants that changed out every 10 years. If you have a shingled roof, depending on the situation, it could be 30 years. I know some are rated higher, but generally, for instance, I have one I'm working with Erie right now because it's a high dollar value home. The home was built in 1993, and the contractor said it was a 40-year shingle. Erie doesn't want to see anything older than 25. So for them to be willing to take that property, a contractor is going to have to come out and certify that that roof is in good condition before they would be willing to extend coverage. And that's going to become more and more common, where wear and tear items that people don't always maintain, the insurance companies are now going to be putting pressure on people to do that work. Otherwise, they're going to cancel coverage.
That's very interesting to hear that that's the direction insurance companies are going. It always seemed that you gave an insurance agent your address, and for the most part, they would produce a quote for coverage. And now it sounds like the insurance companies are becoming much more proactive.
Oh, yes. We have one company that we do business with that is actually the oldest insurance company in the US that really had some issues because of being one of the few that would write the inner city row homes. They now pay a company that as soon as you initiate that quote, it will take a satellite image of the roof of that property, and it has already been graded. And depending on what grade it has, they may want you to look at that roof before you even be able to offer pricing to a customer.
It's smart, and with some of the technology that we have now, I guess the insurance companies have an increased ability to make sure they don't have to pay anything out on claims.
Yeah, I mean, claims are going to happen. It's more a matter that they only want to pay out when they really should, not necessarily someone lucking out that, you know, a storm came through on their 32-year-old roof and now suddenly the insurance company's paying out $20,000 to give you a new roof.
Understood. So tell me what separates you and Rothenberger Insurance from your competition.
One of the things that I think really differentiates us is we have a lot of carrier direct appointments, almost 30 direct, not to mention a few other brokerage relationships. So we really have the ability to work with more companies than most of the other local independent agents. But we're not so big that you're not going to get a certain level of customer service with us. Because what you generally see when you get to a certain number of carriers is that you won't have the same level of service because they've gotten so big. And I think our agents are very hands-on. Most of our clients have our cell phone numbers. I have a bunch of clients that wanted to be my friend on Facebook, and they'll just send me a Facebook message when they need something. I have a guy that loves to fix up and sell cars, and he literally sends me the new VIN number. I add it. If he sold something, I subtract it, and I send him his ID card for the new vehicle direct through Facebook messages.
That's a new way to bind coverage. But it's nice that you're so willing to be flexible and meet your clients where they are and how they want to communicate with you.
Yeah, we'll be as hands-on or as hands-off as somebody wants us to be. I know that our agency principal has clients that he has to call each month to remind them to pay their bill.
You should tell them about auto draft.
Some of them know, but I guess we do have some older client base as well that's kind of stuck in their ways.
I understand. So Sean, I want to switch gears just a little bit and let our audience learn a little bit more about you. How do you spend your time when you're not working?
I tend to be very service oriented as well. I am on the Northeast Berks Chamber of Commerce board. I am on the RAC Foundation board. I am president-elect for the Spring Township Rotary Club. And I am sure that most people in Berks County are used to me running around different nonprofit events or community events. I like to call the time of year that we're getting into right now as the fairs, festivals season. So you'll see me at the Hamburger Festival. You'll probably see me at the Chili Pepper Festival. I just like being out in the community, and it doesn't hurt that so many of these events revolve around food because I'm a big foodie. I love to travel and eat too.
I completely understand that. And that's the thing about Berks County events. They generally center around food. So for those of us like you and I that are foodies, that works out real well.
Very much.
Well, congratulations on all of your accomplishments there.
I guess there's one other thing I forgot to mention.
Sure.
I'm also one of Wilson High School's bowling coaches.
That's wonderful.
And we
Bowling.
won the county championship both of the first 2 years I've been on the coaching staff. Won't say it was me, but it was me and my brother.
But it didn't hurt, right? So
No,
what's your
I was born and raised in bowling alleys.
so what's the trick to bowling a strike every time?
Well, it's easier than it once was because bowling ball technology has really moved forward leaps and bounds. But like most other sports, it's a matter of repetition. It's muscle memory. If you want to be consistent and be able to hit the same spot on the lane every time that you need to have that muscle memory in your arm and the hand-eye coordination to do that. And it takes time.
Okay. It's definitely very, very interesting to hear. Now, are you originally from Berks County?
I am. I have lived most of my life in Berks County. Growing up, we moved around a little bit, but the majority of my life I have lived in Spring Township, probably about 5 years now in Muhlenberg Township, and there was 5 years away at college in Saginaw, Michigan.
Very, very nice. And what is your fondest memory of the Berks County area?
The fondest memory of the Berks County area, that's a tough one. I would say it would probably harken back to the community of bowling that I grew up in all across the county. We were a little bit of a tight-knit group, but you kind of make lifelong friends. It is a very friendly sport. It's not as cutthroat as some of the other ones are. So, our biggest rival in most sports was Governor Mifflin, and I still have plenty of Governor Mifflin bowling friends. I can't say that I have as many Governor Mifflin football friends.
Did you also play football?
I did.
Well, it's I guess bowling, even though you can do it as a team, I guess to a certain extent, it's an individual sport.
Yeah, you can excel both ways. Unfortunately, when I was coming through, I was much more successful on an individual level. But now as a coach, our teams have had a couple standouts, but I think our real strength is the fact that we have so many good bowlers at one time.
Oh, that's great. That's definitely very very unique. And your work with Rotary, are you looking forward to being president-elect of the club?
As I am president-elect, I am told that I will have to take some classes to prepare me to be the actual president, so that should be interesting. But I am definitely excited about trying to grow it because I'm sure many people have looked around and saw that certain service organizations are not having as many people come out, especially post-COVID. So it's tough. Running certain events takes a certain amount of people, and certain things don't get to happen if we don't have enough bodies. But
Yeah.
we luck out. Spring Township has the largest Interact Club in the county. We partner with Berks Catholic, and there's over 150 students that are part of that Interact Club.
That's wonderful. As a former club president, I can tell you that the training is helpful. I always like that they call it PETS, which of course stands for President-Elect Training Seminar. But I think the name is very interesting. Now, when does your Rotary Club meet? Because we'll give a little plug.
Our meeting is the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. The meeting starts at noon. We meet in the Squawk Cafe that is in the Riverfront Credit Union building on Broadcasting.
Okay.
So if you know where Isaac's is, it's basically across the street.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I may try to pop in one of these Tuesdays.
We love visitors.
So Sean, if someone is looking to work with you or with Rothenberger Insurance Services, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can access us by phone, which would be 610-406-5827. You can find us through the website, which is www.RIS, as in Rothenberger Insurance Services, quote.com, risquote.com. Or you could just Google Rothenberger Insurance.
Or Facebook message you, apparently.
Yes, if you can find me on Facebook, I might be a little fun to find, as my current Facebook photo is a picture of me in elementary school. So
I did notice that. Well, Sean, thank you so much for being a guest here today. I really appreciate your time and the insight that you've provided to us.
It's been a great time, Russ.
Thanks. And to our listeners, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Not Minding My Own Business. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Have a good day.